All right, it's been a little while since we've gone live on Thompson to Clark, but with the beginning of spring training, and we gotta get Bismarck here. It is yeah, it is spring training, and so we're gonna talk about all of the things that we are kind of keeping an eye on as the spring is here. And I guess the Giants they have a game on Saturday.
Yeah, they start Saturday already. Yeah, I was listening to Kawakami and he was interviewing Buster, and Buster's like, "Hey, we start on Saturday." And I had to look at the schedule because I was like, "Well, which Saturday?" And it's already this Saturday against the Mariners. It's
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah, that's nuts. And I guess they do have to start soon because they open the season. They're the first actual game in the regular season against the Yankees on
Yeah.
Netflix. And then with the WBC and the different spring for that, I know players in all of the camps who are playing for the the WBC. I think they had like their own like early spring training start or whatever. So there's
Yeah.
lots of things that are happening. But before we even get there, we do have to talk about something that was the story of like last night and this morning, which was Tony Vitello. He had I guess he just kind of like, he had a media thing, and then he was just like, by the way, guys, I'm going to change it up here. I'm going to ask you some questions. And they were like, okay, what's going on here? And he had to get some things off of his chest. And I kind of heard about this last night, but I didn't really dig into it. And then this morning, I hit my Athletic app very early in the morning, and Andrew Baggerly had a piece. And then I went and read Susan Slusser's piece. I read John Shea's piece. I would say Shea and Baggerly were a little harder on Vitello than Susan Slusser was. So from what I gather, Susan Slusser really likes him. I think she believes he's going to be good, but also she's good. He is good for her job because he is so open with his, the things to get off his chest, sort of like this. So
Yeah.
from what I gather, he was very interested in kind of understanding the reporting of him leaving Tennessee because he believed that the reporting that came out was disadvantageous for his relationships in Tennessee because he had not 100% decided, and the story came out in his belief that led folks to think that he had already accepted and he had not accepted yet.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one because if you go back and look at the reporting, I think there was a feeling that he was going to take the job, but they didn't say that it was a done deal yet. And then I'm sure in Tennessee, the media there covering the college team probably was like, "Oh, like this thing is national. This must mean he's leaving." So he had to answer to a lot of people before he was ready to do so. And he decided to air those grievances yesterday at the press conference. And my first thought was, brother, like you and I have, worked at different jobs over the years. Like you used to work for Yahoo back in the day.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you were working at Yahoo and let's say you took another tech job, and in your first like 3 or 4 months at your tech job, you just kept going, when I was at Yahoo, this is how we did things. Or,
Yeah.
at Yahoo, I had so many great memories there. And this is kind of what Vitello is doing. And
Right.
I think he's doing it mostly because those are his experiences and he doesn't have anything else to rely on. You can think of like Bruce Bochy. If Bruce Bochy could go, oh yeah, back in 84, when we went to the World Series, Vitello doesn't have that to fall back on when he's trying to, create conversation or talk to his team or whatever. So yeah, so that was my instinct, was like, yeah, he's not over his ex-girlfriend yet, and he needs to kind of move on. And maybe this was his way of finally putting it behind him. What did you think about that whole scenario?
So I ended up watching it, and I mean, really, the whole thing. There are so many articles about it, and so many long articles, and different things said about it. The whole thing was like 3 minutes and 12 seconds. So that's what I keep going back to. I'm like, let
Spring
me
training. We need something
yeah,
to write about.
let me watch this 45-minute tirade that he went
Yeah.
on. And then I put it on and I go, that's 3 minutes and 12 seconds. So, and he didn't look mad and he didn't look, I think he was just disappointed. And I think he just wanted to air his disappointment. Buster hired a guy that is going to, that, that wears his heart on his sleeve. He had something to get out there and he got it out there. And so I don't really have a problem with that. Yeah, he doesn't have the experience to draw back on. And I see the comparison if you're going like from Yahoo to Dell, Yahoo to Google, whatever. But he's going, I mean, this is more like going from college to your first big boy job. Right?
Yeah.
Don't have those other big boy jobs to fall back on, to say, okay, I'm at Google now, but when I was at Yahoo, I did it this way. This way I can apply that. Not to say that Tennessee is not a big boy job. I mean, he was making millions of dollars,
Yes.
and and he was in charge of, not necessarily kids, but kids becoming men, and that's what he was in charge of. So it was a big time job. But that was his world. His world was college baseball. There is no pro baseball on his resume anywhere at all, ever. And he even made a point to say near the end of it, look, it's time to draw a line in the sand and leave college basically behind and say, here we are now. And again, games are starting Saturday.
Yeah.
You and I are going to talk about some stuff that we want to see in the spring during this episode. I haven't heard any of these things yet out of Tony's mouth.
Yeah.
I've seen the interviews. I've seen the talk. He does mention Drew Gilbert, Blade Tidwell
a lot.
I'm not hearing a lot about Keaton Wynn.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing a lot about some of the other guys that we want to hear about, because we know these guys and we know that they might have roles on this team in 2026. So that's what I'm waiting to hear. And so that was a little discouraging, because again, in the opening press conference, when he was introduced by Buster Posey and Zach Manassian, it was a lot of college talk. And I thought, okay, get that out of the way, because here you go. You're going to be meeting the guys. You're going to be touching base with them, figuring out lineups, pitching rotations, bullpen duties. And that's what we want to hear about. And we're not there yet. And we're in the first week of spring training. So that's what I'm hoping going forward. We kind of leave all this behind. I see a lot of the misleading headlines of, does Tony want to be in San Francisco, with a question mark? And then you get into those articles or you get into those videos, and the question is not answered because that question was not asked during this press conference. That's not what this was about. This was about, and I get it. He was hurt, and he was hurt for his team, for his coaching staff, for his family, that this was put out there, that 4 or 5 days before he accepted the job, that he already accepted the job. So I think he just wants to say, look, when you're reporting on me and you're reporting on my team, let's be accurate. And we know that this is the day and age of not accuracy, but who can be first with reporting. And we see that everywhere, in every aspect: politics, sports, gardening, whatever it is. We see it all the time. So I think that this was more of a, let's set the record straight. Here's all of the reporters who are going to be reporting about the San Francisco Giants. Let's be accurate. If you have questions, you come to me and you ask me those questions. I'll lay it out there. I kind of felt like that's almost what he was trying to say without saying it. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I'm just trying to make sense of the strange scrum that this was. And listening to Susan Slusser today, she said, usually this stuff is done off the record before the scrum, off the record with reporters that you're familiar with and trust, off the record after the scrum. But it was not done that way. This was the media scrum presser in the dugout before practice or after practice. And I think that was the weirdness of it. But I think he'll learn that. I think he'll get that, and I think this week now, because of that, this week and the first couple games of spring training are kind of a turning point for him. Let's see what direction this goes. And again, these types of scrums and talking to the press afterwards, and what is that? That's like 2/10 of our Major League Baseball manager's job. The important part are the other 8/10, the other 80%. How do you manage this team? How do you manage the bullpen? How do you manage your starters, lineup,
Yeah.
base running, everything else? That's the important part. That's what I want to see. We're not there yet. So this is kind of all we have to go on. And I think that's why it was such a big deal the last couple of days. Like you said, it's spring. You got to talk about something. And this is what came out. He made it something to talk about.
Yeah, I think
Unfortunately, and here
I
we
think
are.
he's I think he's savvy enough to know that that was kind of going to be the topic
Yeah.
of conversation. The reporting, this is what everyone believes was the thing that upset him, which is a piece by Andrew Baggerly, Brittany Giroli, and Ken Rosenthal. And Ken was there, so maybe that's why Tony decided to
He
use that time.
he did the interview with Ken Rosenthal right before the media scrum.
Right.
So I think he was a little touched, a
So
little nerve touched.
here's the paragraph, the second paragraph in the piece. Industry sources confirmed that the Giants are closing in on hiring Tony Vitello. So they didn't have it as a done deal.
Yeah.
What they said is the Giants did not respond for comment, and Vitello himself reached via text message, said there is nothing to confirm. So they reported exactly what he said. And my wonder, because he is media savvy, he understands how to communicate with a fan base through the media. But my wonder is, as I imagine, Tennessee college baseball media, where you're the king, I'm sure that was pretty, pretty cheerleady. Though I don't want to dismiss those folks out there, but when you're winning constantly and you've kind of created this program and made it into a superpower, I imagine the media was very favorable to him, as they should have been. So is it also that kind of like the difference in being covered in that way versus like real Major League Baseball coverage? And even the Bay Area itself, I think the coverage, the reporting can be strong, especially Baggerly, Kawakami, and Killian, Slusser, John Shea. Like those are all really good reporters, but they're also not going to take shots, unnecessary shots. I think Baggerly is such a good writer that there are sometimes subtleties in his writing that you can read into, but I don't think there's anything really like in his pieces where he's just like pointing fingers or anything, and that's not what they do. So I'm just still kind of boggled a little bit about what he was actually saying was not correct, because those sentences I read, they didn't say we have confirmed that Tony Vitello is leaving. They said sources close to says that the Giants are closing in, but we reached out to Tony and he said there's nothing to confirm. So they gave his side of it as well. So to me, as my reading, that sounds fair, but to him, there was still something that rubbed him the wrong way. And maybe it was the thousands of texts that he was getting. Maybe there's communication with coaches who were upset at him for not being on the straight and narrow. And he's like, look, I said in that thing, there's nothing to confirm. So it was just interesting, because my worry is like, okay, what happens if they start out, 5-12 and how is he going to handle that kind of thing? But that is something that he's going to have to learn, I'm sure. And maybe we are overblowing this thing out of proportion. And this was very strategic on his end to go like, hey, I just want to get this out, because if I don't talk about it now, I'm going to be thinking about it, and let's get it out of the way early in spring training. But less about whether or not he wants to coach the team. For me, like, I don't sense that. I do sense that he probably misses his old job like that. And everybody goes through that, right? If you come from a great opportunity and you leave it for a new opportunity, the new opportunity isn't not always easy and familiar. Your old opportunity that you loved was familiar. So you're kind of building new ground. And so I understand that piece. I don't blame him for that piece. It's the, oh, what happens if the stove gets a little hot? How is he going to react to that? That's what his thing made me wonder about.
Yeah, for sure. And what I'm really curious about is we keep hearing that he talked to Ken Rosenthal before that media scrum, but then Ken Rosenthal hasn't put out an article yet with his talk with Tony Vitello. So I want to know what that conversation was. I think it got sidetracked because then Ken Rosenthal had to talk about Tony Clark today, so that kind of threw everything off. So he's got the big Tony Clark article and news piece out there today. And that's going to be going on for a couple of days too.
Yeah.
Because I think they're voting on a new head of the MLBPA tomorrow, I believe it is. Kind of an interim head of the MLBPA. That's a wild story too.
Yeah, no, it is. It was wild when we saw that he was stepping down. And then when I sent you the Jeff Passan story, and it was because there was information that he had an affair with his sister-in-law. I was like, "Oh my god,
that's crazy!" Yeah, I thought it was a financial thing, and
sure,
and just more of the. But is that, and now it's just wild. I mean, the whole thing is just wild. But Tony Clark, I think, has done his time. Right, he's been there. He's probably been the MLBPA for a good 15 years or so since he retired. But there are a lot of good representatives out there. Man, I'm trying to think. The Giants have had a few.
Let's get some other old Tigers in there to run that. Get Travis Fryman. Maybe he can step up and
Austin Slater, I think, was kind of vying to be pretty high up in the MLBPA once he retires, but he's signed again. He's back with the Tigers. But I think once he retires, he's a guy who's very, very well invested in the MLBPA.
Hey, give me the Stanford guy to run that show. I'm good
exactly,
with that.
100%.
Okay, so we'll table the Vitello thing. I don't imagine it's going to be a big thing unless he keeps mentioning the his old team. I think he's going to be pretty mindful about it. He probably knows. It's like, okay, I need to stop doing that. We need to focus on the here and now.
For sure.
So let's talk about some of the stories that we are kind of interested in following during the spring. You came up with 3, I came up with 3, and we'll kind of just go from there. So I'll let you lead off. What's the first thing you're paying attention to? What are you keeping your eye on spring training?
Yeah, and we always talk about the fact that you've got to have more than 5 starters to get through a season. I think every team is kind of at that point now too. And so one of my big things is after our starting 5, you got Webb, you got Ray, you got Roop, you got Hauser, you got Malley. After those 5 guys, you've got to have other starters / long bullpen guys who are prepped and ready to be stretched out and hopefully go 4 or 5 innings. And so I want to see the battle that takes place in spring. And I want to see how Vitello uses those guys in the spring. There's going to be, how we always have a lot of split squad games as well. So you're going to have, starters. I say that in quotes because you're also going to have these guys are probably going to be bullpen guys for the most part throughout the season, or they're going to be AAA starters. But I think the front runners right now are going to be Hayden Birdsong, Carson Wisenhunt. Those are your guys. Those guys. So last year, Hayden Birdsong, the last 2 seasons, I guess it was, in his major league career has 37 games, 26 starts in the bigs, 48 minor league starts. So he's a front runner. Carson Wisenhunt, 5 games last year, 5 starts, 67 minor league starts. After that, you're looking at Keaton Wynn, 68 minor league starts. You're looking at Blade Tidwell, 69 minor league starts. Carson Seymour, 85 minor league starts. Trevor McDonald, 84 minor league starts. Tristan Beck, 60 minor league starts. And then Caleb Killian, non-roster invitee, He was a guy that was in our trade to get Chris Bryant from the Chicago Cubs a few
Feels like
years back.
forever ago now.
It feels like, well, it is. He's got 83 minor league starts. So all of these guys are going to be stretched out. I want to see who becomes the front runner after Birdsong and Whisenhunt. Because again, that you're looking at now, you're looking at 7 starters, right? You're going to need 2 more guys who are going to be stretched out in AAA, in spring training, and they're going to be needed throughout the season because you're going to have dings, you're going to have hurt, guys get hurt. You've got Malley and Hauser who are coming off of injuries and everything else, and haven't pitched a ton the last couple of seasons. So that's my number one thing to look for in the spring is how these guys are stretched out. Who gets to 5 and 6 innings in a start by the end of spring training.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the biggest tell that we're going to see.
You and I were talking about, and in our chat with both of my boys, about Whisenhunt, and there was a story that his fastball was up to 95 in spring training, and we're going to hear stories like that where at the beginning of spring, their fastball should be up. They had all the rest.
Sure.
You're
where are you in September?
that's the thing. But it's all good things, and he's trying to figure out whatever that third pitch is to be the out pitch. As far as we know, even though he was essentially a 2-pitch pitcher last year, the changeup was still very, very good for him. So if he can add that third and maybe a fourth pitch that he's comfortable with, and he can get that fastball speed a little bit higher, then we may be talking about somebody who, and you and I have been talking about him for several years on this show, and we had always said, the whole key to him is adding another pitch, because the fastball is not an out pitch. The fastball is there to set up the incredible changeup that he throws. So that's something to look forward to, and I can't wait to read the stories about him, because I know the writers are going to be focusing on that.
Well, and that's the thing too. We talk about this, that's kind of what a little bit of the frustrating thing is with Tony Vitello yesterday, and is that I want to hear about these guys. I want to hear him talk about the starters, talk about plans, talk about ideas for the bullpen. I know we haven't started anything yet. There are no games.
We barely got the coaches named, even though they've been they've been there for 2 months.
And that's why I'm going to give it some grace, because this is a whole new coaching staff, right? A whole new manager, whole new coaching staff. We've got a ways to go. They don't know yet, I'm sure. They need to see who's out there and who can do what. And they got to talk to these guys as well. And, they're going to be going and talking to the new bullpen staff, the new pitching staff, everybody, and kind of getting ideas of where they want to go. I did listen to, there is a good podcast with Pavlovich where he did talk to Hauser and I keep saying Malley, but Buster Posey called him Tyler Molly.
Okay, so we heard Malley from the beginning, exactly. So maybe we'll have to hear how Kruk and Kipe say his name.
Well, and listening to those interviews, Hauser's got a great personality. It's super fun to listen to. Molly, I think he may not be a big personality guy, but we know that he's a big talent guy. So that's going to be the important part. His answers are pretty much no. There wasn't a whole lot going on there, but it was pretty interesting. They were some good interviews, and I highly suggest checking those out. So.
Yeah, we are lucky to have so much content. Like I mentioned, the reporters that I read, but I'm still digging the FP and Susan Slusser podcast, even though FP is a KMBR guy through and through. And I grew up there as well. I grew up listening to them, and then I got to work there a little bit, and I got to see how the soup was cooked there. But he is. It's hard for me as because my journalist brain is always on, even with my favorite teams, right? Like I'm always looking to poke holes in like the homerism, and he is a homer through and through. But even as a homer, still his podcast with Susan, they have really good guests on it. So we have like great content to read, to listen to. So we're really lucky in that aspect. Like, imagine if you're in like a smaller market and you got like one or two beat writers
Oh
for like
God.
the entire time, and
No, I'm having a hard time keeping up.
yeah, it
I can
is
tell
hard.
you that much. It's hard to keep up. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I use the Apple News trick because it
Right.
just aggregates like all of the columns together in like a
Yeah.
spot. So,
I love that.
all right, my first one, it is related to Vitello, but not about the thing that happened yesterday. I'm just really interested to see how he runs the spring, right? Like, this is spring training, and he's got coaches and he's got people to kind of create the processes for him, but how comfortable he feels, because this is like I imagine for his brain it's like a sprint happening for a full month, and he's just running so hard and so fast, and he's got to handle the media, he's got to run his team, he's got to talk to his guys. And by opening day, is he going to be the same like super jazzed, cool personality guy, or is he going to be like, oh my God, like I got to be like more focused and a little bit more buttoned up? I hope that he's still the same guy that he is right now, because I think that's what's going to win fans over. Because the bottom line is, we don't have to be in love with the guy, because all we care about is if they start the season and all of a sudden they're 20-10. How his personality is, we don't care. We're like, yes, like you're the right guy for
Yeah.
the job. Because to me, if Bomel won 90 games, as kind of old school as Bomel is, I'd be like, great, like he's fine. I love Bomel, but he didn't. He was 50-50. Kapler, the 1 year when they won all those games, you and I were like, maybe it's fine to bunt when you're up 10-0. Like, maybe that's the new way to play, even though we grew
Yeah.
up where that was so frowned upon. But, Cap didn't last. That style of baseball didn't last. So really for us, it's like, what style works, what's going to work on the field, and then you buy into it, because we're lucky. We got to, Roger Craig was like a good manager when we were growing up, and then Dusty Baker, and then Felipe Alou, and then Bruce Bochy. So you have like all these well-respected guys. And then since then, outside of the one Kapler season, it's just kind of been like ho-hum. And now you hope that Vitello kind of brings it back to the stuff that we got to watch when we were younger.
Yeah, for sure. No,
Right.
it's going to be an exciting view. He's given us stuff already. We can't say he's not already given us a little bit of his personality.
Yeah, for
So
this show, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, what's your second one?
Yeah, so my second one is going to be, and we're going to stick with Tony Vitello because he's the new manager, and I'm a base running guy, and I love stolen bases, and I'm so tired of where this team has been the last 4 or 5 seasons. 2021, 16th in the majors with 66 stolen bases. We didn't really get much past that every season after that. 2022, we were 22nd with 64. In 2023, dead last with 57 stolen bases. 2024, 29th with 68. And 2025, exactly the same, 29th with 68 stolen bases.
Is it possible that when the MLB decided to increase the size of the bases,
Yeah,
somebody tricked the Giants and said, they're actually smaller, guys. They're not bigger, they're smaller.
Yeah.
You should run even less than you've already been.
Yeah. Or bigger bases doesn't mean more base running success. Now, and I can't necessarily blame it on the manager or anything like that. Not like Tony Vitello is going to come in and magically make us steal, 40 or 50 more bases in a season, but more aggressiveness. There were a lot of times last year, and Bomel didn't want to run us out of an inning. If you were down 2-1 in the 7th inning, they didn't want to, because we weren't getting guys on base. We weren't scoring runs. So he said, if we get a runner on first base with 1 out, we wanted to try to move that runner along. That's not the type of team that we had, and we couldn't do that type of thing. Are there going to be more hit and runs? Are there going to be more sacrifice bunts? Are we going to see more aggressive base stealing? first to thirds. And so that's what I really have my eye on. I don't know if I'm going to see a lot of that in spring training, because I remember there was one year with Bob Melvin. I think it was his first year as Giants manager. We stole a lot of bases. Tyler Fitzgerald stole a lot of bases in spring. Didn't transfer over to the majors, but you're talking about a college coach who likes to be aggressive, who likes to push the envelope and get the emotions flowing. And stolen bases in key situations can really jack up a dugout. So and the fan base too. The fans in the stands see a stolen base in the 8th inning when you're down by a run or even up by a run. And you steal a base. I mean, that could get things going. Or you steal third, that could get things going. So yeah, that's what I have my eye on, is Vitello's aggressiveness on the base paths.
I wonder how much of Bo Mel and just the philosophy, the reluctance to run, had to do with the fact that they just struck out a lot last year.
Yeah,
And
that's
they did not do a lot of the the fundamental things very well. So if your worry is that you're not getting very many runners on as it is, and then you're striking out a lot, so then the risk is like, okay, we already, do we want to make 2 quick outs like that? Like there's a risk there. And then knowing that you don't hit well with two outs, you're like, okay, like that's like the worst thing we can do. So that, I wonder how much of it is that.
Yeah.
And really they don't have, they have a lot of kind of powery high strikeout guys. Like, do you want to risk Willie Adames, all of a sudden running, and this is the guy who plays all of the games, and do you risk him getting hurt? Do you risk Chapman getting hurt? Like I wonder if there's some of that as well, because these guys are, not old guys necessarily. Chapman's a little on the older side, but you need these guys to play because you don't have the depth necessarily to replace them like some of the other teams may have. So, yeah, I think there's a few different reasons, and then maybe creating the roster, how they put together this roster may give us a little bit of inside scoop about if they're going to run a little bit more. Because also, when you have younger players like a Drew Gilbert, like a Casey Schmidt, like a Tyler Fitzgerald type, maybe you can do a little bit more with those guys. But do you want to run with Encarnacion? Of course you weren't going to run with Wilmer. So you have like these guys in your lineup who they're just kind of base to base kind of guys. So maybe as the depth of your team changes, as the personnel changes, maybe you can get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and even if we can get, 20 more stolen bases, 30 more stolen bases, I don't think it's so much a numbers game as it is a situation game. If they're going to steal 68 bases, and those are key 68 bases that help you win a ball game or stay ahead in a ball game, I'm fine with that. It just kind of seemed like there was a lot of base running early on in the season, and then that pulled way back. And like you said, it could be the strikeouts, but you've got a rise now. You've got Bader. You're going to have a full season of Jung-Hoo Lee concentrating on right field. Elliot Ramos, I think, could steal some bases in some key situations. Honestly, Patrick Bailey is no slouch stealing bases. He's done it. So I think there's a lot of situations where the Giants could add 20 to 30 stolen bases on the season in key situations. And it could just be about jumps. It could be about reading pitchers better. It could be having better scouting reports and studying pitchers' moves a little bit better, and knowing in this situation here we can go. And again, hit and run. If we don't get a stolen base out of it because it's a hit and run, but it's a successful hit and run, I would love to see that more.
My second one is the closer situation. Obviously, Randy is out for probably the whole year, so we can't really rely on him, and he was an all-star last year. Ryan Walker, he didn't have as good of a year as he had in the past year, and there was even some, maybe a little bit of a loss of confidence from him. We saw some quotes where maybe the frustration was getting to him a little bit. But this year, he seems to be back as like, I want the ball. I want to be the guy. that's my role. I can't wait to get back out there. So, I don't know if, he noticed that, maybe the confidence was a thing. Maybe he went to therapy, whatever it was. He came back with a different mindset. Still, not that I don't like Ryan Walker. I mean, like most relievers, I think he's probably a better 8th inning guy than a 9th inning guy.
Yeah.
But at this point, he's probably the best guy that they have. Now, they also have Eric Miller coming in from the left side, who, he got hurt, so you can't really rely on him. And then we saw on the non-roster invitee list a guy who we're kind of hopeful for and then got hurt, and we didn't know what was going on with him. The Giants unprotected him in the Rule 5. He did not get drafted. I think I went to San Jose to see his first professional start. Will Bednar, he is in spring training, and they have turned him into a reliever. He is following in his brother's footsteps, and I'm kind of interested in what he could bring. What he can, can he come in the 9th inning and just throw gas, like absolute gas, not having to worry about pacing himself and going into the 5th and 6th inning? That is intriguing to me. But some of my intrigue is also like, I have no idea who's going to be in this bullpen. So it's not like the options are like, there's not like a ton of guys, right? Like, you're like, oh man, if this person fails, then, just throw this guy who throws 98. I mean, there's a few options, but none of them seem to be like surefire money options. So that's why someone like Bednar, I'm like, oh, maybe he's the guy. So it'd be interesting to see. I would imagine that Walker comes out of camp as the closer. He's got the most experience doing it, but I'm interested to see what they do there. I don't imagine Bednar makes the team, but a good showing would put him back on the radar, which is what I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have their guys. You're talking about Jose Buto, you're talking about Eric Miller. But again, like you said, am I happy with any of those guys being the 8th inning guy? No, not really.
The Randy Rodriguez thing is such a bummer because I think he would have been the guy. Like, they would have really featured him as the guy. They would have prepared him to be the guy. But so
that did hurt. That threw everything off. 2027 is gonna the bullpen's gonna look a little bit better just because he's gonna be back. Possibly the end of 2026. We don't know. He's starting his throwing program in March, so there's a possibility we see him at the end of the year. He's not going to be the same guy this year, but then with another off-season throwing program, we certainly hopefully get somewhat of the same guy back.
Even though in our group chat, I was calling him 8th inning Randy all year last year.
Yeah, exactly. but he's what we've got.
Yes. So, all right. What's your last one?
Yeah, my last one is the 4th outfielder battle. I know this is what everybody wants to see.
Yeah,
in spring.
They even traded they signed somebody.
Yeah, they signed Will Brennan. He was with the Cleveland Guardians last year. A big contact guy, can play all 3 spots. Has an option. That's the key. Because Luis Matos and Herrera Encarnacion really don't have options. They're out of options. I'm assuming the way it's probably going to go is you're going to see Luis Matos battling for that 4th outfield spot, probably going to be awarded it. Will Brennan most likely will be the guy who starts in AAA because he's got that option. Luis Matos has that kind of power speed combo. He is a contact guy as well, but he can be a power guy. If he started every day, for a different team, not in this ballpark, he could probably be a 20+ home run guy in, let's say, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, somewhere like that. But not in San Francisco at Oracle, and not with the guys he has in front of him. So he's probably going to be your off the bench, make some contact, drive the ball into the gaps, be a speed guy. Herrera Encarnacion he's kind of a one-trick pony. He's a power guy, and he has no options. Do you stick him on the bench and have him be a DH guy or a pinch hitter late in the game and just take away all versatility? I don't think you do, because he's kind of a right fielder, and that's what he is. He's a right
Mhm.
fielder DH. So that's kind of a tough one. Drew Gilbert, another guy, he can start in AAA. He's more of a speed contact guy, a good fielder. Tyler Fitzgerald, another option. He's been working in the outfield. He gives you a lot of versatility because you can also play second base. You can also play, maybe some shortstop if you needed him to, but he could also play all outfield positions. Then, like we said, Will Brennan, Grant McCrae is the other guy, and he's a speed guy. But I believe he still has options, so he can probably start in AAA. So I think it's going to come down to Matos and Encarnacion and possibly Fitzgerald and Brennan. But I wouldn't be shocked if coming out of spring, Luis Matos is your fourth outfielder to at least start the season, and Encarnacion gets either waived or traded to somebody. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I want to see how many at bats these guys get, what they look like. Numbers don't always tell in spring of who's going to win a job. It's going to be more, what are they doing on the field? What kind of adjustments do they make? What kind of guy they are for the clubhouse? And they're, luckily we're familiar with all these guys except for Brennan.
Yeah.
And so is the coaching staff, and so is Buster Posey, and so he knows all these guys. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting fourth outfielder battle, and maybe you have five outfielders. Maybe it's Luis Matos and Brennan and Fitzgerald, because Fitzgerald can also play the infield. But you're already going to have Casey Schmidt as your super utility guy who could play all over the place. So,
would you at all be surprised if Drew Gilbert and Blake Tidwell made the team, simply because part of coaching is understanding your players, and Vitello would understand those guys more than anybody else on his roster? And I wonder if the familiarity with those guys helps them make the squad. But like you said, like the options thing is probably the key for the outfielders.
Right.
But I do wonder about that part of it, because like Drew, like he has seen what Drew Gilbert can mean to a clubhouse.
Sure.
And so he also probably understands what Drew can give him in the 7th or 8th inning, and he may not understand what Luis Matos could give him in the 7th or 8th inning. So I kind of wonder that part. Yeah, I should have mentioned this in my Vitello thing about how he's going to handle his spring, but I'm kind of intrigued about that, because you kind of joked about it where he keeps talking about his guys, but maybe he's doing so purposely. Maybe he's like, these are my guys. Like I know these guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't be shocked if Tidwell made it, because they are going to need some long reliever guys. Is Bivens going to be around? Can Blade Tidwell take the place of Bivens? Is Bivens going to be a 6th inning guy? Are they going to limit him to 1 inning? Last year, last couple of seasons, he was used as like a 2-3 inning mop up guy.
Mm-hmm.
But could Tidwell be that guy, because they can get him again, keep him on a 3 inning schedule. So I wouldn't be shocked about him. I would be shocked if Drew Gilbert was the 4th outfielder and Matos and Encarnacion were both gone. That would shock me. It wouldn't shock me if he kept Matos and Gilbert. I could see that. You have 5 outfielders, but I can kind of see that. The only problem is those guys can't play anywhere on the infield.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if there's going to be a 5th outfielder, it's going to be a guy like Tyler Fitzgerald, who can also play the infield. So I would be completely shocked, I think, if Drew Gilbert started the season as the 4th outfielder. We're going to see him this year, but I would be shocked if he started.
The best thing for Matos and Encarnacion are to just tear the baseball off tear the cover off the baseball, because not only does that help them in making the team, but it also helps their trade market, because that if the Giants don't have room for them, would you rather be traded or would you rather be waived? You would rather be traded. And so
as fans, we'd rather you be traded, because we know we're going to get something in return, at least a little something in return.
So yeah, that is the best thing for both those guys, is just to hit the hell out of the baseball.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, my last one, and then we'll get out of here, is we're always interested in prospects. Blake Tidwell and Drew Gilbert, they're not kind of like the upper echelon prospects, but they are young guys who we are watching because we're hopeful that they can actually be additive to this baseball team. But there are other guys who are much younger and who are on prospect lists who will not be on this team this year, but they are in spring training. That is Parks Harbor and Bo Davidson. It'll be interesting. I can't imagine they're going to be there for long. So hopefully they get some early ABs and we get to see something. But also Bryce Eldridge, because he is not a given to make the team, I don't think, because he also has options, and it may even be better for him just to play every day in AAA and get some time at first base. And, I can't imagine they want him to play the outfield, but I know he did.
Right.
He did have to take his outfield glove out there, or I think his mom had to mail it because he didn't have it.
Yeah,
so
right.
she had to send it. But for Bryce, I think this is an important spring training. Of course, it's important, but like last year, the expectations were very low when he was in spring because it's like, oh yeah, like this kid will be here at some point. But now there is some expectation, like, oh, is he going to make the team or not? Like, there's, is he? If Will Clark was in spring training, he was making the team no matter what. Like, is that Bryce? So, I think we're all watching him very closely, but also the other guys, Parks and Bo, because those guys are a little bit less on the radar. So I think it's their opportunity to make some waves and to just kind of get Giants fans excited about it. So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, watching any prospect of the Giants in spring training always gets us excited, and sometimes too excited because Bryce Eldridge. Remember, he started out hot last year, and we're like, "Oh, is he going to make the team?" And then, but then you got to remember, like, hey, this guy he hasn't played above Double A.
Yeah.
So we just don't do that anymore with the San Francisco Giants. We make sure you get through Double A, Triple A. And maybe even we might even work you into the ground before we get you up to the majors like Luciano, and then just nothing happens. But
yeah, that's
but yes, but we watch this stuff, like Hawks at the beginning. We're like, oh, Bryce Eldridge hit a home run. Now this year, if Bryce Eldridge starts out hot, we know there's a very good chance he's going to make the team. So that's a little bit more exciting. But guys like Davidson, that just fun to watch and see them in a major league camp, but we know that they're not going to break camp with the team. If they did, it would be a complete and utter shock. But just watching them and knowing that this is the future, that's pretty fun and exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen photos of them, but we've never seen them with a uniform on. We've never seen how they run, how they swing. Like, I would have no idea what their swing looks like.
Yeah,
necessarily.
exactly.
Before we get out of here, what do you think of the new spring training hats? Because they're wearing orange uniforms this year.
I know. I like the uniforms. I like the jerseys. I always wait for, us, we're hat guys.
Yeah.
I always wait for the spring training hats because the last couple of years have been really awesome.
Yeah.
And then I saw this one and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I like the cactus on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little too much for me. It's not something that you could wear in like July. You know what I mean? Like some of the spring training hats that I have from the years past, you could wear those in July, August, and it just looks like a Giants hat. But this is too much like, a flowery cactus on it. You wear that in July and you're thinking spring training.
Yeah.
You're thinking big time spring training. It just doesn't mesh well with me.
Yeah. Well, we will have some baseball to watch this weekend. Actually, I don't know if we'll be able to watch it. I don't know if it's on TV or not, but at least they're playing.
Probably not. So, I mean, on occasion, I think you can catch this stuff on the MLB app. There are some spring training games sometimes that you can catch on the MLB app, especially if they are playing against other teams who are televising. I think our MLB.TV subscription goes through like the middle of March. So I think we
isn't ESPN running that service now?
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, I've got to look. I never know this stuff until it actually starts. Yeah. And then I get excited to go, oh, look, there's a game on. Oh, this is happening. Oh, they fixed this. So yeah.
All right. So we'll be back probably next week, especially if there's some good stuff to talk about. Um, there's what are we, like a month away from actual games?
Yeah, I believe March 25th is Giants Yankees opener on
Yeah, so 5
Netflix.
weeks.
Yeah, 25th, I think. Yeah, I believe it's around the 25th. And I'll be in Disneyland at that point, cruising around, watching, standing in line, waiting for rides,
Phone.
watching some Netflix on my phone.
All right. That is it from here. So for Brad, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.